Hello. Yeah, this is Heidi Wichmann. She holds a doctorate in biology and has specialized in functions of the brain. And maybe you can say a few words about how you got to deal with brains.
Yeah, I studied neurobiology, so yeah, but um, during my biology studies, at some point you have to get in detail into some topics, and so I was stranded at the field of neurodegenerative diseases, cell culture in particular, and yeah, and then I dived into the marine microbiology for my master thesis. Yeah. And then I went back to combine both of them in my PhD thesis about marine natural products in the field or their potential in treatment and prevention of neurodegenerative diseases in preclinical studies, like cell culture systems of diverse kinds.
So you have been diving really deep into it, and just the last couple of years, the topic of improving brain functions has become urgent for society. So what are the options to like have better brain health, to improve the functioning of the brain, development for children, and also, of course, old age? So very, very many people have degenerating brains. How can all that be prevented?
So there are several factors, and I think some of them are also not known. And the problem is that we don't want to see what the real cause is. And one of the most important is malnutrition and the wrong diet and toxins in the diet and so on and so on. So I don't have to explain that to you, but of course, our brain and our bodies can only be as good as the building blocks we are giving them. Yeah. And also, another thing is that these so called secondary metabolites are not considered as important in the diet. Yeah, they are thought to be secondary, so not that important. They are mostly known as some kind of communication molecule in the environment. But we also eat them with our food. We inhale them to with forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, what many people know, the terpenes, the smell of the forest is beneficial for our immune system and is lowering the cortisol or stress hormone levels down and all of these. And these are also things we take up with our diet, of course. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and of course the soils have become worse and
Right.
worse, so we have a lot less nutrient density, and
Right.
luckily nutrient density is becoming a topic. And basically we can now see how bad the food has become.
Yes.
And that's something what is, still widely unknown, and something that is really stunning for me, that one of the most basic things, the brain needs the DHA, EPA, fatty acids. Of course, this is only one of many aspects, as I learned from you, but even this very basic thing is unknown to almost everybody, even people dealing with nutrition a lot. So how can that be?
Well, if you go outside, or I'm from that field, so I'm a so-called expert of that field, and you have this enormous, huge variety of different nutrients that we know for now, but there are so much more that we don't know, especially regards, you know me since, I don't know, 8, 9 years, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, I guess. And if you remember when we started talking about my book, What Algae, a Healthy Brain, and Whales Have to Do with Each Other, I chose DHA as one example. And the problem, on the one hand, many people don't know that, and on the other hand, there are so many who are praising it as the one solution for any kind of disease. And sadly, that's not working, not for everyone. It's an important factor, but we also have to consider that the cell can't be built with one single compound, and it needs this high diversity of nutrients, which is also something very unique to you. It's different than for me. And DHA is just one fatty acid, but there are so many, especially in wild marine wild food, that are very beneficial for our brain and important building blocks, and also for the neurotransmitter synthesis. So that's, I think, another important point. And this is where we come. DHA is one example. Many don't know that, but the term nutritional psychiatry, it's a relatively young research field, but it's becoming more and more intention that our food can influence our mood, or even help to prevent or treat at some point depression or other whatever kind of things you have. And this is mostly explained by the neurotransmitter synthesis, where I, of course, know a lot about. But we forget just simply, like you said, it starts with the soil and it starts with our food. And without the right building blocks, we can't, our bodies can't produce properly what it needs. Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah. So I have become aware of the enormous potential of the oceans for very high quality nutrition. And if you go to East Asia, people have macroalgae on their tables, and that's great. And you see that these populations, they are clever and healthy. So is there a direct relationship?
I think so. During my PhD thesis, I came across one single compound out of macroalgae. So C. litus, is it called? Ulva lactuca is the main producer, but not only that. And it's an important component of a sulfur cycle. Yeah. So for those who know the Gaia hypothesis, that is a sister compound, so to say. Yeah. So, and many of these compounds show in preclinical studies and even further ahead medical potential in treatment of diseases. So many people just simply don't know that before Corona, 60% of our drugs, the medical stuff your doctor is describing you is made from the blueprint of something in nature, a natural product, a secondary metabolite. That's the usual thing. Of course, we rebuild them by petrochemicals. That's not that intelligent, because our bodies don't eat petrochemicals or oil in that case. But we just forgot the diversity of life in our food chain. And we try to simulate it to some degree under controlled conditions like aquaculture or any kind of plant on land, which is not in nature, which is not surrounded by all these challenges. And these challenges influence the nutrient density, what kind of nutrients we have in them, and also protection metabolites or compounds. They can lead to us further, or give us through our diet. And the great thing about seaweed is it's one of the oldest and most ancient foods our body are used to. We in the Western countries don't remember that, of course, and it's a lot is forgotten. But the Celts and Vikings, for instance, from our area in Hamburg and there, they ate it. It's assumed because of the high vitamin C content, because of scorbut and all these diseases during when you're on the sea. Yeah. So, but they are, as you said, a traditional food. Also in France, C. litus is a delicacy, so to say. And but there is a growing demand, especially if you think about good proteins. Everybody's taking care of its protein intake, and there's a lot of research going on, but this is mainly from Asian countries, and but it's getting better during the last 10 years. but not much. Yeah, okay. But, yeah.
Yeah, it seems that supplies from the oceans are vast and basically endless, even looking at a very large world population. So could we diminish the amounts of algae by having everybody eating them?
Good question. It depends on many factors, yes, because usually you should always leave something for nature behind. It's the same with edible land plants like the nettle or dandelion or all the things when you go outside. They have a much higher nutrient density and are the usual food our bodies remember since ancient times. But I think it depends. If we would really eat it, I think we would handle that seaweed, yeah, in particular seaweed. But it's also used since decades in the food industry for gelling agents or whatever. So any one of us to some degree has eaten a macroalgae compound. And also they are trying to get fuel out of it, or they tried, I just found another one who made some kind of natural or ecologically friendly package for tea or whatever made from an algae compound, but it's always just one. And I think that in that case we should use aquaculture, then it's fine. But for human digestion, I would assume, or I would recommend at least that at least mariculture is better, because we can't copy the sea. We humans are very arrogant in thinking we are better than nature. And during all these years, also I've been in the medical area, I've been in the marine microbiology or marine biologist area, and what we found out is that it's so intelligently made into the smallest detail. Yeah, these even cyanobacteria and microalgae are also considered as algae, not only macroalgae, but they live together in symbiosis with other organisms. And I can tell you right out of the lab, it's not easy to cultivate any one of them. It is not. And of course, they are able to degrade anything, because they are amongst the oldest beings on Earth. Yeah, they are here much longer than us. And they have the survival mechanisms inside of them. Somehow they always learn to adapt. If there are too many toxins or whatever, a seaweed will die as well, like a plant, like any other living being, but they need to handle that somehow. And they are very fast. And one other thing is that the production rate of seaweed depends on what kind of seaweed you have, or algae in general, is much faster than terrestrial plants. But on the other hand, it's a great and basic source for a lot of nutrients. But it's also not that we can only eat seaweed and then we're fine. So our bodies need the diversity. So I like to say, inside we are like the sea, and outside we like terrestrial, yeah, like the earth, so to say. Yeah, we combine both of it. So, and I think we also got our bodies for appreciating the earth, yeah, because our bodies are made of it, and without earth and its nutrients, for instance, we can't make this experience here. And on the other hand, we are also detoxifying earth, because all the pesticides, all of this harmful stuff that has been put out there, we also incorporate and have to handle with that. And that's the same with any living being on this planet. And there are others like seaweed or other algae and other plants who are much faster in that. And they can, from my point of view, they can bring it to us in form of food.
Yeah, and they don't accumulate toxins like fish does. So
Yeah.
it's, maybe you can say a few words. On one hand, how is the content of potential toxins? And on the other hand, the beneficial trace elements that we have plentiful, 80 plus in the oceans.
So it's thought that 10,000 liters of seawater, also all the nutrients of it, are contained in 1 kg of seaweed, for instance. Yeah. And of course, there's always the question, what about the toxins of the sea? And I have to say, stop breathing, because there are so many toxins in the air. I thought the same like that. So I was the same, but as I'm getting also these certificates and what we are getting, I was very surprised how low, for instance, the aluminum level is. Do you know? Do you remember years ago when aluminum was the topic in alternative medicine, and everybody said, "Oh, that's a big problem," and we have bumblebee larvae who contain aluminum concentration where that would be harmful to us. That's a strange thing. So, but they are on land, not in the sea. And I was wondering, wow, how less the content, for instance, of this, toxin at least is, in that case. And that shows me they have some kind of defense mechanism or something that they can handle it better. And that is absolutely logical, because seaweeds or algae in general are the cleaners of the sea, and or on land. You can also find some algae on land or even in the snow, or on your car. So they are there when there's work to do. That's the one thing. But on the other hand, they produce neurotransmitters and are very important for the communication of the whole planet, also for the weather. But let's don't dive too deep in that. The thing is, they have some kind of mechanism, because the people always forget something. They could potentially die. You can poison a plant like any living being, and they have to handle that. And due to the fact that they live in the harshest environments on Earth, they are very well trained, and they know toxic environments. Yeah, if you consider the history on Earth, how life was, at least at least how life thrives on Earth. So if we follow the evolution theory, it's absolutely clear that they probably saw things and experienced things we don't know anything about, and that's one explanation. And the other thing is also, terrestrial plants look mostly bad, not better. No, it's the opposite. So of course, you always have to take care. So I wouldn't eat algae who are for wastewater treatment or so. Yeah, of course, yeah. But the ones in the ocean, as I said, we cannot mimic the ocean. We can't. We can't. We tried it since years. I remember when I was at the university, one of our PhD students who I was in the same room with, they tried to really try to find out what is in the ocean water, nutrients or whatever, and they couldn't, because it's so diverse. And of course, it's just the state of art that science has. It's not the whole truth. It's just the state of art. We're still busy with the tip of our iceberg. So
there even in some fruit there are like 2 million substances, and we know nothing about almost everything of that. So that's sort of making us aware that nature is much more complex. And so having algae that are living in a natural environment that have to cope with challenges and defend against that, that's often the substances that are very, very helpful for our body to thrive. So now on a more practical level, of course, we can go into a shop and buy like wakame algae and so on. So the Chinese kitchen has all of that. But what can we do if we want to like help our brain to keep healthy? So is it enough to eat such macroalgae once a week, or can we do more?
I think it's not enough, because it's like, I eat once a week healthy, a nutrient dense dish. So it depends on how you eat, basically. one thing is, of course, the wild edible plants, integrate them in your diet. You are very active in the food forest movement in Germany, which is quite small. In other countries, it's much bigger. But I would say food forests are the closest thing to edible wild plants. Yeah, it's quality, because that is building up this wilderness to some degree. Yeah, the soil regeneration, it's always this cycle. So I made a talk almost 2 years ago, but it's still actual. It's called the interconnection of nature and health, where I go through all of these things with also literature or references where you can have a look at. But we have to see it really on a bigger scale. Health is including Gaia, or the earth. We are a part of that. This is where we are getting our everything from, whatever we want. Yeah. And due to the poisoning of this earth, it's quite complicated, but these movements will make a big shift, I guess, because the regeneration of Earth is enormously of nature. That just think about Chernobyl and Fukushima with the wolves. Yeah, so they developed such in a such fast rate. Protection and defend mechanisms so that they can thrive. And they always miss the plants and the microbial life in the soil, for instance, in these studies. So they focus on the big animals like wolves or dogs or frogs who adapted to the radiation in that case and got their protection mechanism. And we just forget about ecotoxicology. So how stuff that is put out, like pesticides, for instance, which can harm a lot, but the microorganisms are amongst the first who try to handle that and to somehow make it not harming their whole colony or life. Yeah, and that's always this feedback mechanism, and so they develop some kind of survival mechanism that's always the same, or they die. There's this or that, life or death, and nature thrives to life always.
Yeah. So now I want to ask you to give people a hint where they can get your book, and then we come to your company, what your products are. So maybe you can start with your wonderful, insightful, and very easy to read book.
So it's in German available, but I have an English copy. So if someone is interested, I think I can just give it out. Okay, so that's not for free. Also I don't have a problem with that.
That would be great. So people could write to you.
The German one is with a publisher, so I have to check that with them. That's something different. But the English one is for free. That I will give it to you again. It's a first draft, just by the way. So it's I got a translator, a professor from Australia who translated it. It's almost 8 years or almost 9 years ago, 8 years, I guess, when I wrote it. And that's the one thing. And due to my research, I started at the university. I really, really wanted to have seaweed that contains the compound that I was investigating, because it was neuroprotective. It was helping in the elongations of the cells that they connect again. Yeah, so what we love to see. And it's just one of many compounds in the field of neurodegenerative diseases out of algae who are very promising. And for now, from China, there's one drug, an Alzheimer drug based on one algal compound, macroalgae. I think it was brown seaweed, some kind. And it's in clinical trials in the US as well for a moderate Alzheimer maximum. Yeah, slight, not the heavy ones, but it's influencing the gut intestine, as the microbiome of your gut, and this over the axis to the brain influences the behavior and the progress of the disease, obviously, like I said. And that's always the same. Of course, food is influencing our microorganisms on the whole body, because we always talk about body cells. Most people don't know that we actually are more microorganism than body cells. And this is also something we have, this all has to work together. If there's a war inside of us, they can't work properly. And so this is also some kind of food that these bacteria, I guess, need, which nobody knows about, nobody looks at them. And yeah.
Yeah, so you from all your research, many years of research, you have put that into products that I personally like very much. So they do work. I do testing, what is good for me and others. And so I could really see that this is of very, very high quality. So where can people get your products?
Yeah, at my webpage, Dr.Wichmann.shop. I'd like to tell the story. I was starting with them at my kitchen table just for me. Yeah, and I combine, it's not only seaweed, I combine the other wonderful God-given, universe-given, whatever you like to call it, gifts of earth, and I combine them. Some are with extracts. I'm out of that field. I have done a lot of extractions in my work, but it's always important to see the broad thing. So the whole plant, for instance, cofactors, nutrients that help each other to that the bioavailability is increasing. For instance, with oil, vitamin D3 in some cases, vitamin D3, the sun vitamin anybody needs. Who's producing them as well? Seaweeds like Ulva lactuca, so the sea lettuce that I love so much. And this is also included so that you have little small power packs to upgrade your food intake, that you theoretically have all the nutrients, for instance, for your neurotransmitter synthesis. And if that's working, yeah, that's a good start. Also a good food for the bacteria, probably. I'm sure of it, but there's no research of that. And you can find it on my shop. And yeah.
Yeah, I especially like the mixture with chaga mushrooms that have very, very good properties. So all this is for preventive care. So this is not at all medical advice. We want to have good health from good nutrition. So this is part of nutrition. And this will supplement some of the things that we usually don't get with our food from degraded soils or from food that is not having, well, enough seafood, what
Available.
is very sad. So we should have a lot more of that. And so, yeah, great. So I think it's wonderful that we get attention on this. So we will put the links to your shop and your book below. And I have to say, I don't get any commission from you because I just like your products. I like your work. We know each other since many years. And I'm really, convinced that what you do is world class. So there is not that much on that level.
Thank you.
So I thank you very much for what you do. Yeah, and with this, maybe you want to say a few final words about yourself, about projects you do.
Well, I'm just like you. I really got it that our food and the soil is the most important thing. Yeah, and although I talk about a lot of algae, who knows me knows that I always talk about the bigger context of everything. And yeah, I just want to tell the people, just get active, take your power back, and start with, if you have in your garden, with the things you eat. And yeah, as you mentioned, fish is a bit problematic sometimes, but not all of them. Yeah, and seaweed has been for an ancient times a very important food. And yeah, who would like to check it? You're welcome warmly. And yeah, if anybody likes to have my book in English, we will send it, or maybe you can put it on your channels. I don't know. Yeah, just feel free to ask us. You will find the contact information under on my shop, of course.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so thank you very much. And I appreciate also your words on soil, because I have a relatively big group of soil researchers. So the improvement of the topsoils, the biological living soils, that is absolutely crucial.
So
and I have to say, restoration of the soils is the way to preserve the oceans, because the effluents from arable land that is maltreated with with biocides and mineral fertilizers, that is washing out into the sea, causing these marine dead zones that are horrible. There are hundreds of them, increasing. So we really have to act, and improving soil quality is one of the key issues. And then we will keep the oceans clean and productive, so that we can also profit from the macroalgae, but also from the fish that is maybe not so high on the food chain.
And a short, I'd like to tell something before we stop. As you have so many people who are in the soil thing, so to say, I do experiments, of course, the whole time. So, okay. But with Posidonia grass here on the Balearic Islands, these residues are washed ashore, but they are protected. So you have to be careful if you can take them or not. So it's about the nutrient cycles, but that's not what they are about, but that's what I'm about. And it was shown that they massively increase the nutrients of sprouts, for instance. So you can also integrate it like the nettle as a fertilizer. And it's a bit harder for the bacteria to degrade because it's strong. Yeah, it's really strong. It's not a nettle, a fresh one. Yeah, so it takes time, but it's also an excellent fertilizer. Just to mention that, because the nutrient cycle is relatively disturbed, and we can help it because the nutrients of the sea, like iodine, for instance, are also important here. So thank you.
Yeah, that brings me to a nice story to close off with. In the Baltic Sea, there is a lot of seaweeds washing ashore, and it's of course very much tourism there, and tourists don't like rotting algae on the beaches, and that's why they drag them away with lots of effort. So these are thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s of tons. And a colleague of mine, a prof at Agriculture University near the Baltic Sea, he has researched the application of these algae to improve soil, and it worked fantastically. And then authorities, to come back to the craziness of our world, they said, oh, the boron levels are too high. And what they didn't say, and probably didn't want to hear, is that the soils in the region are terribly deficient in boron. So this is maybe a final thing to wonder why the world has become so crazy. And so there is hope. If people improve their brains, maybe there is a way out of that. With that, thank you very much, Dr. Heidi Wichmann, and all the best to you and for your work. Thank you.